Good evening. It is Tuesday. I am echoing already because I've had some issues with StreamYard, the live streaming platform. Yeah, don't worry, I'm not actually up against a brick wall, although sometimes I do feel that way. But anyways, I am live streaming because I said I would. It's Tuesday, November 11th, 2025. It is Veterans Day. Thank you to all of our veterans and your families for everything you've done for our country. Of course, big thanks to my daddy-o, retired Sergeant Major in the Marine Corps. Um, and I am here on late night Tuesday, 10:15 p.m. Eastern. I'm totally echoing. I should probably just cancel this. I've been having some issues with this platform, but I'm just going to keep rocking on because it is perfect. Um, the topic for tonight is uncertainty. This whole series, I'm doing a series of 5 different lives this month in November, and it's all about helping people navigate inevitable uncertainty. And specifically, I'm going to do it. It's definitely going to be a shorter live because I'm already hearing myself echo. I think I'm two people in one. Oh my gosh, guys, when you don't know why something's happening, it's perfect. So it's a little tricky because I am hearing an echo and I'm exhausted. As some of you know, we didn't have school today, so the kiddos were home. Um, and my daughter had a play date, which ended up being um, a good idea concept, but it was a whole lot of work, a lot to clean up, and I ended up being late to other meetings later in the afternoon. And we're just rolling with it. So I did not get this live in when I had planned to, but I also gave my word to myself that I am doing this. I'm doing these 5 lives. Hopefully, they're helpful. Today's topic is, as it says on the screen, economic uncertainty and budget constraints. Right? We can all relate to that, I think, in some way, shape, or form. Not only is it Veterans Day, but it is also a moment of just incredible uncertainty in our country. That's the reason the same word is apparently day 42 of our government shutdown. This is not a political comment, but the point is to expect the unexpected. It's something my dad always taught me. In fact, as they say, the only certainty is uncertainty itself. Somebody said that to me early during COVID, and I thought it was so compelling. And I figured I would flesh that out a little bit more in the live. Gosh, I wish I was not hearing myself echo. I don't know how to get rid of this other person on. This is so annoying. But I'm just going to keep it rolling, guys, because it's literally part of the training for tonight. It's like, keep going. So I hope you can hear what I'm saying, but I am going to be doing these 5 lives. This is the second of 5. This week, I'll also be speaking to tech and AI transition. And then next week, we're going to be wrapping up with intergenerational workforce insights as well as purposeful work that builds the world we want. So we move forward even when things aren't going as planned, as is this stream, right? We move forward. I was tonight. I was at Clark University today, actually with my BP, my daughter, who is often my sidekick. Some of you may have seen me around, and it was all about looking at problem solving, uncertainty as well, and looking at the distinction between something being complicated versus something being complex. And I thought that was really very cool. And some of the thoughts I think from tonight's session, and then I'll talk a little bit more about certain ways to reframe this current situation. So there's so much obviously in the world, in our country and around the world, even our communities that we cannot control. But it is a sort of a reframe of how we think about uncertainty. It's to truly expect it and to be able to reframe it and respond to it in a way that serves you, where you can show up as your best self. Um, so I think I'm going to keep rolling on that theme for tonight. So in terms of economic uncertainty, budget constraints, so whether you're an individual or organization, I mean, who do you know is dealing with some kind of uncertainty or constraint? So just know that that's the norm, right? No FOMO here, no fear of missing out. Most people that I know, organizational leaders, and people that are running families or just running your own life, and you're dealing with a level of uncertainty that is to be expected. Um, and so I'm going to speak a little bit to the business organizational leader who may be struggling with, keeping their own team engaged. I know there's been a lot of sort of talk around sort of this quiet quitting. Um, and what is it about people feeling disengaged in their workplace? People are experiencing different levels of stress and anxiety. And as a leader, how is it that we can keep ourselves and our teams engaged? And one thing to say, this is something that came up during this project management training tonight at Clark, it's really keeping things people centered, even as AI is certainly in our face, it's all around us. And, to some level, we're going to be adopting it in a way that works for us. And that's a whole other conversation. We'll continue that this week um, in a different live. But, we may be dealing with um, uncertainty that comes in the form of, let's say, slower sales cycles or funding cycles. Maybe people that you thought were ready to sign on, are not showing up, or they're not able to commit. Um, and one thing I just want to offer as a way to reframe, kind of like dance in this inevitable uncertainty, is to be a little bit more flexible. Remember, people are stressed, right? You and I were stressed. People that may be working for you, reporting to you, even friends and family. I mean, people are stressed, and so to be flexible and understanding and keep things people centered, even though we are incorporating obviously tech tools all around us. But again, especially if you're leading an organization, to be flexible and to really consider project-based type work, which could come in the form of an internship or an apprenticeship or partnering with a college per se. But the point is, what can you do to be that agile leader? So in the face of uncertainty, being agile by design is a really great strategy. Um, and it's not just about sort of shrinking or feeling like you must lay off staff. Of course, looking at cutting costs, and we all need to be looking at where we can cut costs. But think about how we can, cut costs, or, in a way that doesn't necessarily cut your impact. Um, and so looking at ways to be more agile, looking at ways to reposition or redeploy people, let's say, on your team, or even yourself, looking at what it is that you're doing day to day, right? And doing, I heard something really great in a recent AI training that I was in, not only doing a time audit, but looking at how you yourself are utilizing your precious time, right? That precious asset we cannot get back, but also looking at a joy audit. Like, what is it you actually enjoy doing? So if that's, that was so cool, because it's not just about, you know, looking at how you're using your time and maybe beating yourself up because you haven't done everything you thought you would do within a certain time frame, but it's also looking at what you actually enjoy. And then if you have people reporting to you, what do they enjoy doing, and making sure that some of those sources of joy are in their calendar, which can, again, that's an example of having sort of that people-centric team, even as we're certainly adopting the various technologies. Let's see. So what else? How can you sort of redeploy different people, yourself included, myself included, to that high value work that feels, satisfying, and, you're moving the needle. Let's see. So I think, especially in times of uncertainty, which is pretty much always, remember, the only certainty is uncertainty itself. I love that. The idea of stakeholder trust and human connection are really more important than ever. So keep that in mind. Um, and it's really about, you know, also looking at those internal systems. Do you have the internal systems in place to weather the storm? And looking at some of the core skill sets that, no matter the technology, skills in effective communication, project management, um, decision-making ability, you know, thinking of ways that you can turn uncertainty into an advantage for yourself. And I know that may sound like sort of a far cry, but it's just something to be thinking about. Again, as I had put, I think, in the title of this live, it's not about will you face uncertainty, it's how will you respond to inevitable uncertainty. So I think that's a really great way to look at things. Really, it's about mindset, my friends. I mean, this is an ongoing training practice for sure. If, notice that things don't often go the way we might want or hope for them to go, whether it's our personal lives, our professional lives. So there's certainly a gap. The longer you live, you can observe these trends. You may want things to go a certain way, you may have a certain plan, but then life goes a different way. And so the real question, and one of my favorite definitions of leadership is like, well, how do I show up in the inevitable gap between the way I might want things to go and the way that life goes? How do I show up as a human being, right? Do I show up as somebody who's, scattered and upset and angry, or coming from a place of fear or scarcity, or do I show up in a way that I'm sort of, looking for what's possible and, I'm breathing, I'm still enjoying my life, I'm smiling and thanking people, it's that way of being that underlies what's possible, it's that mindset. So that's probably another whole life for another day. Really making sure that you are investing in people that starts with yourself is a really great way to navigate uncertainty. And this idea of, yeah, budget constraints, that is a reality for most people, again, individually, in families, organizations, but making sure that you are bringing what's possible or abundance mindset, right? It's the questions we ask that really determine the quality of our lives. And I think that's a really good reminder. If we look out at the world and we say, oh my gosh, I gotta pull back, I gotta cut this, that, or, I'm not ready to take on one more thing, let's say it's some form of AI transition or transformation, right? Because again, that's in our face. But it really is about making sure you're continuing to put, people before profit, and then profit comes, is certainly, it's um, that we ourselves are working on being our best self as a human being, no matter what the circumstances, and, showing up in a way that, we can feel good about who we are in the world, um, and that we have a sense of choice and agency in the matter. So no matter what the circumstance, right? It's not to sort of look out and say, oh my gosh, I'm the victim of circumstances. I have to, survive this next wave, whatever it is. We're in this together, really, my friends. And, how is it that we can shift that mindset and view inevitable uncertainty as, an advantage? It's like, how are we going to respond to that which is always upon us, called uncertainty? So, guys, it is really funny. I'm so sorry. This live, I might even end up deleting this because I literally can hear. I can only hear double. Everything that I'm saying, I'm actually hearing it feeding back through my StreamYard app, and so it's been a very difficult commentary for me. But this was also sort of a practice in fulfilling on my word. I said that I would take on this challenge, working with this speaking coach, and you gotta, get back out front and be, talking and, just jump on LinkedIn Live, which I love. But today was an example of, my goodness, I thought I had a plan, and then with my kiddo home and the play date and everything went down with that, and like the crazy traffic to a couple of meetings. It just like today so did not go the way I had intended, which is again why I am doing this live at this ungodly hour. And again, it sounds terrible with the feedback, and I may end up just deleting it, but I think it's a really great example of me being unstoppable and moving forward. And that's, I think, why I selected the brick background. I think it's hilarious. Like, no, you guys, this is actually a virtual background in the StreamYard platform that I use. But yeah, this has been a really difficult experience. Only my day today, but this live is going to be ending very soon because all I can hear is feedback. And I'm still here because I said I would be. And I think that's a really great place to wrap up if I do end up keeping this on my platforms, which right now I come on my LinkedIn, um, and I to Facebook uh, platforms. But where I want to wrap up is, you know, there's so much that we have no control over in the world, right? And like this crazy double, all I'm doing is hearing myself I don't have control over that right now, but I'm still showing up and I'm fulfilling on my word self and to my coach. I'm showing up on the day I said I would, and I'm speaking on the essential topic of economic uncertainty and budget constraints and some sort of tips and strategies, and again, a lot about mindset. So this is what I said I was going to do, and I'm doing it. When I said I would do it, which is essentially for me the definition of integrity, is me being able to fulfill on what I said I would do by when I said I would do it. And I love that as a closing thought. I think that's a really good reminder, especially when part of this feeling of uncertainty and stress, it feels like it's so out of our control, but we certainly do have control over our own promise to ourselves and to the people in our lives. And so I just want to say, you keep going. We got this, my friends. We are definitely in some turbulent times, but we are not alone and we can together co create a world that works. So, thank you if you jumped on here live. I hope you have a wonderful, restful Tuesday evening. I'm going to get some sleep myself. And again, if you're just jumping on, guys, this is a virtual brick wall. And I just thought it was perfect for the way I was feeling today. And again, big thanks to all of our veterans and their families for the sacrifices that they've made to our country. And I am going to leave you with that, my friends. And again, this is number 2 of a 5-part series this month, which was sort of a response to a challenge that I said yes to with one of my coaches. So hope to see you again online live. I am going to figure out the whole StreamYard thing so it's not echoing and I can think more clearly and be a better contribution to you. But our next live will be number 3. It'll be sometime this week on tech and AI transition. And my friends, I have been diving deep, deep into a DIY do-it-yourself AI sort of set of workshops, and I'm going to be doing a longer boot camp here. So I have a lot of thoughts, the good, the bad, the ugly about AI, and I would love your thoughts on that as well. So that's our next live. With that, I just want to thank you for showing up. Keep going. Let's keep going. And please reach out. I always love to hear what you're up to and how I can support you and your dreams. So good night. Take care. And peace to all.